Welcome to the University of South Carolina College of Pharmacy Gamecock Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Margaret Gregory, and we're pleased to have as our guest today Christina Cox, a 2006 graduate and associate professor for the college. She's received multiple awards for her dedication to academia and to our students. In 2010, she was named Preceptor of the Year. In 2023, she received the university's Clinical Practice Teaching Award, and most recently, she received the Garnet Apple Award for Teaching Innovation from the university. Dr. Cox, thank you for being with us to share more about your story.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with how you first became interested in pharmacy as a career and how you chose USC for your education.
Yeah, so I originally wanted to be a pediatrician, and that's actually where my pharmacy journey started. Obviously, I didn't go to medical school, but I had the opportunity to meet a clinical pharmacist, and I realized and did some investigation. I actually came and met with then Associate Dean, Dean Buff, and talked about that you could do pediatric pharmacy. And I always loved the chemistry behind pharmacy and how medications worked. So I put two and two together, right? So once I knew that you could do pediatric pharmacy, I was hooked. And I was here for my pre-pharmacy degree as well. So it was a natural fit. We had a pharmacy school. I love being a Gamecock. I've always been a Gamecock. And so it was a natural progression into pharmacy school here.
So in addition to your role here as a faculty member, and we'll talk more about that, talk a little bit about the fact that you also have a clinical practice ongoing.
In addition to my teaching, yes, I do have a clinical practice site over at the Children's Hospital at Prisma Health Midlands, and I practice in the pediatric and the neonatal intensive care unit. So both of those, I spend about half of my time over there doing practice, taking care of patients, in addition to my responsibilities here at the university.
Tell us a little bit about what you love about being in the classroom and being able to share your knowledge with our students.
I love stories and I love learning. And I think that's where my practice and being in front of the classroom really connects for me. Obviously, it's fulfilling for me. I love it, but there's nothing better than seeing that light bulb moment when the students finally understand a really difficult concept. It's notorious here at the college that I teach very difficult topics or what are perceived as difficult topics. And so being able to be in front of the classroom and talk about it and provide the patient experience, try and connect with the students on things that their family, friends themselves have experienced as well. But I really do. I love being in front of the classroom. I love, there's actually like a high, if you will, that I get from doing that. And I always found, even as a pharmacy student, that me teaching something helped me understand it even more. And I think going through that process in front of the students shows them that it's important to know the why behind it and the details and explore it rather than just read something or just have the basic facts. But you have this story, you have this connection, and I'm able to do that better in front of them being in the classroom and doing that in different ways too, not just a lecture format.
You mentioned that you teach some more difficult topics or what are perceived as difficult topics. What are those? And just share a little bit about that.
I think first and foremost, a lot of people are afraid of pediatric pharmacy. They're like, oh, I don't want to do anything to mess anything up, and they're very scared of it. But I think that's a huge responsibility I have as being part of the faculty is kind of getting rid of that fear, because we need our graduates, we need our students to be able to have appropriate care. So I think first, dispelling that fear and giving them the tools that they need to take care of them is super important. So I think some of that is just fear of pediatrics and not wanting to mess up. And then I do a lot with fluids and electrolytes. And so that can be very difficult, a very foreign topic to a lot of pharmacy students, especially starting out in their second year in pharmacy school. Asthma, we talk about nutrition. So while these can be difficult, they're important topics. And so I think it's even more important for me to do fun things in the classroom or different things in order to to make it a more positive learning experience.
One of the things that I read was that you employ Ernest Boyer's philosophy into your teaching. Explain what that is and how it influences what you do.
Yeah, there are 4 big parts of this philosophy and teaching, and it's integration, discovery, application, and teaching. And so each of those components are integrated, using a word in the philosophy itself, but into the overall academic experience. And so I think if you think about each topic, yes, I'm teaching and I need to be aware of how it's taught and the methodology for that, but integrating the practice, application of that, not just me telling the story, but then them in turn using that for application and setting them up for application later on in their pharmacy curriculum and careers, and then discovery. And I think if you can get someone excited about it and their own process for learning and discovering how that happens, I think it all works really well. I think those naturally fit, especially in healthcare profession and healthcare learning.
In your classroom setting, is there something that you think you do that sets you apart from other professors, or things that you've drawn from other professors that you utilize in your classroom?
First of all, we have an amazing faculty, so I don't know that I necessarily do anything better than any of them. They're incredible, but I think what you're saying about learning from others, and also I think it's more about I'm given the freedom, the academic freedom, and the ability to do some things in the context of the course, and what I've learned. So I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of what I'm able to do. So I think we talked about active learning and integration, telling the stories. I've been impacted a lot by my previous professors too, that told the stories, that did that. So I think that is one thing I draw from. I think using hands-on things. So for example, in my pediatric elective, I have the materials there for them to be able to be hands-on. I'm linking it, the content, to the hands-on, to the application of the material. And sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, well, that's exactly what our lab instructors do, right? So they're already doing that. They're having the application, they're doing the things, they're integrating a lot of it. So again, I'm using a lot of those contexts or those things that students are getting in other classes, but I'm able to pull it into one classroom. I remember being a student, even though it was a long time ago. I do remember being a student, and that it made so much more sense if I could apply it, and providing the students the opportunity to move outside of their comfort zone a little bit and do that. I know even thinking about in one of our courses that is more of a clinical applications or a patient care applications course, having the students have to stand up and talk about, and this is not my course, P.S., but I teach in it, and having the students stand up is they're fearful, right? They're standing up in front of their peers and us and have to say this answer. But if you approach it differently and say, okay, this is a safe space, this is a learning opportunity, and let's have several of you stand up, let's talk about each of your reasons and your decisions and your clinical decision-making process, and let's talk about that and say, oh, you know what, this is great. I really think you honed in on this part, but here's some other things to consider. And do you see how your classmates? So we've taken that scary thing, again, I guess I'm coming back to that, and made it less scary and saying, this discovery and you teaching it now and you explaining why is exactly what I do, right? So they're doing the same thing, and I think they really learn from that too.
So while you're going through a didactic process, you're still allowing them to be interactive, and in turn you're building their confidence.
And I think this will, going back to another concept too that I've employed, especially more recently, and I'm really trying to dive into this, the active learning, the application. For example, in the nutrition series, I might bring in some unusual foods that they might not have seen, and then talk about those foods and talk about what the nutritional value is. And again, really engage. Some of our students have even gone and taken the foods and then made these delicious looking recipes and posted it for their students too. So they're, again, really engaged in and an active participant in that entire learning process. And I just think that's going to stick with them more and hopefully build some excitement and take out how daunting some of this material can be.
In thinking about building the future for academia, What advice do you have for someone who might be considering taking on an academic teaching role, or even for students who might be thinking about this is something I eventually want to transition into?
I hope that there are a lot of students who are thinking about pursuing this career, and even current pharmacists who may be considering a potential career change. We need good people. And so I guess my things to consider would be, remember what it's like to be a student and how you learn, and think about all the amazing things that you're doing and perceptions and experiences you've had along your learning journey, and how to incorporate those things into what you're teaching. There's no set prescription, pun intended, for how to teach and to how to do these things. And so if use that creativity, use the pieces that you've learned, again, the experiences you've had to help build that. I mean, it's worked for me. I don't know that that's necessarily the 100% right thing to do all the time, but I think that's what's needed. That excitement, those experiences, the stories, all the things.
What does it mean for you to have received the Garnet Apple Award?
I was really actually kind of emotional about it in a positive way. It's really the culmination of a lot of things. And I think sometimes that's a big part of what I do, teaching and having the students learn and having a positive experience doing it, and being a part of their journey is really important and to me. And so this was kind of a recognition of a lot of that hard work, but also that validating what I'm doing and that it is working and that it is unique and good direction for our pharmacy learning experience to go in.
So this is a question that I ask all of our alumni and our students and faculty members. What does it mean to you to be a Gamecock pharmacist?
Wow. Okay.
Because you said earlier you've always been a Gamecock.
I've always been a Gamecock. I have always been a Gamecock. So I think it's kind of, I mean, it was just assumed. No, I think that there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. I come from a long line of really amazing pharmacists and educators. I loved it enough and think enough of it that I came back and wanted to contribute to what I was able to give. I think at the end of the day, the culture of being a Gamecock pharmacist and wanting to take care of patients and making sure that whatever we do, wherever we go, we take that piece of us and that culture out into the world and are able to take care of patients that way.
Thank you, Christina, so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for tuning in to the USC College of Pharmacy Gamecock Pharmacy podcast. You can stay up to date with the latest in pharmacy education and innovation by following us on iHeartMedia, Spotify, and YouTube, where you can explore our full library of episodes. Until next time, I'm Margaret Gregory, reminding you that the future of pharmacy begins here at USC.